for a second, Demetria.
Good morning, families and friends. Thank you for joining us for this morning's Middle School Facebook Live session. I am Demetria Faison, the Executive Director of Middle Schools for Seminole County Public Schools. First, I would like to introduce our panelists who I've invited to join me in answering your questions this morning. First, we have Sarah Manser, Principal of Jackson Heights Middle School and a member of the Reopening Task Force. Dr. Michelle Walsh, the Executive Director of Student Support Services, and Stephanie Jackson, the Coordinator of Medical and Health Services for Seminole County Public Schools, and also participated on our Reopening Task Force. I would like to remind families before we get started that you all have access to the SCPS Reopening Plan, the Learning Options Descriptions, the Decision Tree, the FAQ, the Student Selection Link, and the Seminole Options Change Forms, and they are all available on the SCPS website. For our Spanish-speaking families, there will be a Facebook Live session hosted on Thursday, July 23rd at 10 a.m. by Minnie Cardona. I would also like to share that a recording of this session will be accessible to families on our Facebook and YouTube pages. If you're unable to stay for the full duration of this session, they will also be emailed to you. And now I would like to turn it over to our moderator, Mr. Michael Lawrence.
Thank you, Demetria. Just also a little housekeeping for our families who are viewing currently. The questions that we're going to go over today are the ones that we received in advance as of Monday at 5 p.m. So we took the most common and frequently asked questions that we were receiving and kind of grouped those together. So we're going to go through as many of those as possible today in our time allotted. And then if we have a little bit more time left over, we'll go through some of the questions that are going to be asked in the Facebook post as well. So we just want to let you know that. Also, if you have not been receiving our district emails and phone calls, check with your school and also what you put into Skyward, because that's what drives those messages going out. So we want to make sure that you have correct phone numbers and email addresses in our Skyward database, because that's what drives our school messenger blasts, which are those email and phone calls that you receive about information. We also want to let families know that all of our information, as Demetria said, is shared on our SCPS website, www.scps.us. We also post information, obviously, on Facebook for those of you watching on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and we also obviously work with our local media to push information out as well. So aside the phone calls and the emails, our website's a great resource for that information. To go ahead and get started, our first question is going to be for our principal of Jackson Heights Middle School, Ms. Sarah Manser. Are middle school students required to wear masks?
Yes, middle school students are required to wear face coverings when they are not able to be 6 feet apart. So maybe when they're in the hallway, in transitions or changing classes, in large common areas, riding on SCPS bus transportation, or waiting in line in the dining room. Face coverings may be removed, though, for high-intensity sports.
Thank you. Our next question goes to Demetria. If a student elects hybrid, how is it determined what classes they take in each format? Is it a student's discretion? If they elect for a face-to-face, how do they get those classes scheduled together in the day? And can they combine both virtual options and no face-to-face under the hybrid option?
All right, so there's about 4 questions embedded in that one question, and so I want to really go in detail because this is probably the most commonly asked question that I'm getting from our families, and I really want you all to really have a good understanding of what that looks like. So at every middle school, there is a master schedule, and those master schedules are really driven by face-to-face, brick-and-mortar, parent-student request. And so the courses that families are wanting in the face-to-face model, if you're asking for that hybrid, you're pretty going to have to work with the school representative to coordinate that. It's not a pick and choose menu because the master schedule just does not work that way. And so for families who've chosen the hybrid model that includes face-to-face, you are going to get a call from a school representative to talk you through your schedule request. And so typically for students who do a part-time face-to-face model, they're typically scheduled in the morning block, which are periods 1 through 4, or in the afternoon block, which are periods 5 through 7, and that really helps for a transition. Now, I would also like to say for families who live within like a 30-mile commute to and from campus, it is going to be easier for you. If your commute is longer it is going to be a challenge. And in those cases, you are going to really have to work with the school staff to make sure that we come up with a schedule that is going to work for your specific family situation. And now that can be fixed in a couple of ways. Again, if you live close by, we can probably make that transition during your scheduled lunch period, and you will have a scheduled lunch period on your schedule. If not, and you have a longer commute, I would suggest that you maybe consider adding an SCVS course as one of your 7 classes, because that will provide for an extra class period for that transition. It also becomes a challenge if parents want a singleton class. And what singleton classes are usually specialized electives that are only offered once per day. And those are going to be a challenge to schedule. And I know some of our students, especially our returning 8th graders, some of them have been really wanting those classes. And those classes will be a challenge. And in those cases, again, hopefully we'll be able to work it out with our school teams. If not, our students may have to choose a different elective. The great thing about middle school is that a lot of our elective courses are offered by semester, and so students may be able to maybe take something different in the fall and choose that option in the spring term, and hopefully conditions will improve so that they will be able to be accommodated. Also, we have a lot of parents who choose a PE waiver. And if that is something that the parent has chosen for their child, that will be another place where, again, students will have 6 out of 7 classes and will allow for that additional travel time, again, to accommodate for that commute to and from campus. And so another one of the questions embedded in that question is about the SCVS and Seminole Connect hybrid option. And this is the best option for families who want their children completely off campus, but they want to take advantage of some of the classes that are offered by their zoned or assigned school. And if you do not want your child on campus, and that is what you want, this will be probably the best option for you, because you will have the benefit of SCVS coursework and also courses offered at your specific school that is going to be offered through the Seminole Connect model. But ultimately, families, you're going to have to think about your own family scenario. Each scenario is unique. Our children are unique in what they desire for their course options, and you're going to have to speak with your children and look at what's available and make the best choices for your families.
Thank you, Demetria. The next question is also for you, and it's a question we've been fielding a lot. How does virtual school differ from Seminole Connect?
Okay, so I'm going to read specifically from my script because I do not want to miss anything for our families. So, Seminole Connect is an at-home learning model aligned to state standards and SCPS instructional plans. So in this model, students will follow their school's bell schedule using technology and other instructional resources to learn from their zone choice schools teachers presenting live lessons to students. There will also be some opportunities for some independent work in this model. There is an option to return face-to-face to in-school learning after each 9-week grading period with the same teachers, but that is to the extent possible. It may not work out possibly, but we're going to do everything in our control to make that transition happen. And so if you have structures at home for your students to be fully engaged, to follow their school's bell schedule, meaning they'll have to wake up and be ready and dressed and prepared and ready to log in at 9 a.m. or 9:15 or whatever the start time is and be engaged in their classes until dismissal, this will be an option for you. Seminole County Virtual School is also at-home learning with online courses that are aligned to the state standards. Some districts also use these courses, and there are also some online courses that have been developed by SCPS. In this model, families design their day-to-day schedules. SCBS teachers will be available to assist these families between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. on weekdays. There is an option to return to face-to-face after a semester commitment if all of the coursework has been completed for that semester. So families, if you need flexibility and you want to have full control of the time that your students are engaged in lessons, SCVS will be the best option for you.
Thank you, Demetria. And also, just for clarification, we get this question a lot. If you're interested as things get better and improve during the pandemic and you choose Seminole Connect, again, after each 9 weeks, it's a family's decision if you want to return your student back to their zone school for face-to-face instruction, meaning you don't have to. You could continue with Seminole Connect the next 9 weeks, the third 9 weeks, the whole year if you'd like. That decision will be made based off your decisions of what you want to do after each 9 weeks. The difference with Seminole County Virtual School, as Demetria mentioned, is that if you choose that selection, while it is at your own pace and a little bit more flexibility, you do have to go through the whole first semester before you have the option of going back to your zone school, meaning your first opportunity to do so would be in January for the start of the spring semester. Or you could continue to go with virtual school the whole year long and return back to your zone school if things improve the next year, the following year. So just want to clarify that. Our next question goes to Sarah. How will attendance be handled for the Seminole Connect option?
Well, students and families that choose Seminole Connect will be asked to follow the school's bell schedule, but remotely. So those students will have a schedule much like the students who are face-to-face. For example, let's say second period starts at 10:20 on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. A student who is in Seminole Connect will be expected to log in at 10:20 on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. They'll be following that same bell schedule, and then sometime during that check-in, that teacher will be taking attendance for the students that are logging in through Seminole Connect.
Thank you. This next question is also for Sarah. How will technical issues be addressed if a child has trouble accessing the Seminole Connect or SCVS Seminole virtual classes during the day?
Well, we all understand that sometimes our technology does not work out as planned. I had that happen to me just this morning and had to run to the office. So, yes, we'll work with those kids one by one, but we also offer a lot of technical support in the middle schools. We have network specialists and PC field technicians that will also be able to give technical support. And if a family is also having trouble with their device, we are more than willing to swap out devices to assist as well.
Thank you, Sarah. And I do want to address the audience, too. There's a lot of questions about IEPs, kids with special needs. Those questions are coming, so stay tuned. We'll be answering a lot of that for you momentarily. Next question again for Sarah. For kids on campus for face-to-face, will they be switching classes or will teachers be switching and coming to them?
So all SCPS middle schools are going to a 4-day block, 1 day straight 7 schedule. And this will be to minimize those transitions we have with students and also students going back and forth to classes. All middle schools are working on a plan to reduce the flow of traffic in the hallways and reducing the numbers of students who are in large groups in common areas as well.
Thank you. Our next question is for Demetria. How will school materials be distributed at the beginning of the year? Will students come in to pick them up, or will their resources be all online?
So each individual middle school will disseminate that information to let families know when instructional materials will be distributed and scheduled for pickup. There are some instructional resources that are available online. The majority of our textbooks are available online, and other resource materials will be available to families. But we will have cases where materials will need to be picked up. For example, we're trying to make all of our art classes available during Seminole Connect, and our teachers are coming up with ways to make that happen. And so that may require a family to come pick up materials so that they can engage in their art lessons remotely. And so, again, look forward to that communication from your school principals. They are working with their teams. The majority of their teams will report back on August 4th. And so we're trying to gather those information items for you. So stay tuned to communications from your school principals. Please make sure that you're following their social media and looking at their websites for that information that will, again, be detailed and specific for that specific campus.
Thank you. Demetria, the next question is for you as well. How will students pick their electives, and when can they expect final schedules for the upcoming school year?
Right, so students who are returning to their same middle schools or are incoming sixth graders, they submitted their course request back in the spring during the third quarter. So before we went on lockdown for COVID, our students and our families have already submitted their course requests. Now, for those families who have now selected hybrid or some other model other than face-to-face, again, you will get a call from a school representative to go through your schedule request and go through the details of what can be available for you in the models that you are requesting. Schedules will be available for parents to view, and they'll be front-facing starting the week of August 10th. But I do want to also let our families know, just like we have in every other year, during pre-planning and during the first week of schools, our school teams are going through to work to balance course loads and to refine teacher assignments. So there may be changes that will happen prior to the first day of school. So I will encourage you during that time to, again, go back into Family Access and look at any changes that may happen prior to the first day of school.
All right, thank you. And another question, Demetria, that we are getting quite frequently is, how does PreIB work for the at-home options?
Right, so the SCPS PreIB courses for middle school students will be available through Seminole Connect. And so they will be scheduled as we are scheduling our other course options. We are asking families who have selected SCVS as their remote model to enroll those students in the advanced and honors courses that are available, as the SCPS PreIB courses aren't available through that platform. So we'll be able to serve both groups through Seminole Connect and through Seminole County Virtual School.
And Demetria, how do extracurriculars work for the at-home options, such as band, chorus, etc.?
So students who are participating in the home learning options will be able to participate in their school's extracurricular activities. And again, once our teachers return to work, and those teachers who are overseeing our clubs and our other activities, and who are teaching our electives that require rehearsals and performances, they will be, again, giving our families those specifics. Again, some of those things may happen remotely, some of them may happen in person, socially distanced, but again, once we get our numbers and have our numbers solidified and have our teachers back, we'll be able to get that information to our families, and again, it will be specific by campus.
Thank you. And Sarah, if a student participates in the hybrid option or one of the other at-home learning options, can they still play sports and participate in extracurricular activities?
Absolutely. We will still have extracurricular and sports available for all of our students, no matter what option they choose.
Perfect, thank you. And for those who missed this question, we actually covered it. It was the very first question we answered, but I see a lot of comments coming in on our post. But Sarah, could you reiterate again, are middle schoolers required to wear masks all day?
If they are not able to be socially distanced within 6 feet, they will be required to wear masks, yes.
Thank you. And for the audience, also on buses as well. How many students will be in each classroom? This question will be for Demetria.
The face-to-face class sizes, again, as always, will be dependent on the number of students who are opting to show up. And again, that will be driven by families' decisions. And again, we won't know those hard numbers until we get those numbers in on the deadline of July 24th. So typically, core academic classes are scheduled at 25 or less students, and our elective options are a little bit larger, or much larger in some cases for like band and PE. But our principals and our master schedulers who've been working extended contract have been looking at those courses and seeing where we can reduce those numbers, because again, we want to have those classes as small as possible. But again, ultimately, it is driven by how our families respond into their mode of educational delivery. And so as we have more families opting for the remote at-home options, we will be able to, again, reduce those class sizes as best as possible.
Thank you. And Demetria, we get this question a lot as well. As things continue to spike with COVID-19 in our state, if a family chooses the face-to-face model at the beginning of the school year, but things continue to trend in an upward direction and continue to spike, do they have the option of switching to Seminole Connect or Seminole County Virtual School? And if so, when would they be able to do that?
So the Seminole Connect requires a 9-week commitment, And the Seminole County Virtual School option requires a semester commitment. So at the completion of the 9 weeks, our families will be able to submit a request to their school, and we will try to make those changes and accommodate, but that will be dependent upon space and course availability. The same for SCVS requests. So after the semester commitment, families can submit that request. And if we have space availability and course availability, we will do our best, again, to keep our students enrolled in the classes and line them up as best as possible.
And I also want to clarify for the audience viewing, if the situation got to the extent as we saw at the end of last school year, and we had to switch things back and reverse course and do all at-home learning or Seminole Connect, the district would be prepared to do so if needed. And so we want to put that, so hopefully that can make families a little bit at ease, knowing that there will be a threshold and a time that we're monitoring this, we're flexible, we're going to continue to adjust and adapt as needed. So if that were to be the scenario that plays out, again, we don't have a crystal ball to know what's going to happen, but if that scenario did play out, we have contingency plans in place to do what we need to do as a district, no different than what we did at the end of last school year. So again, we just ask our families to be patient and understanding as we go through this challenge with you as well. So thank you very much. The next question will be, again, for Demetria. What if my student needs a laptop for the at-home learning options? Will those be loaned out again like they were at the end of last school year?
Yeah, so we are planning for distributing devices to our families who are in need of them for the students who are enrolling in our Seminole Connect and the SCVS Save My Seed options. What will be different than this time around versus the fourth quarter is that they will be loaned from your school of attendance. And so you will not go to the high school to get your devices. If you are requesting, you will go through your assigned school for those devices. And so schools will provide details on device distribution, but we are asking families who have devices at home and who are able to support in that way to please utilize those devices so that we have enough devices to distribute to our families who really need them.
Thank you. Next question will be for Sarah. Are middle schools using a block schedule for face-to-face learning?
Yes, all SCPS middle schools are going to a 4-day block and 1-day straight 7 schedule, and that will be at all SCPS middle schools.
Thank you. And Demetria, will students on campus be socially distanced during lunch in their campus restaurants?
Yeah, so the middle school principals have been working in conjunction and in partnership with their campus restaurant managers to really look at how we can move our tables and spread out to pretty much close off some seating so that we are able to have kids socially distanced as best as possible. Also, 9 of the 12 middle schools have planned to move to 4 lunches because if we can make that happen to reduce the physical numbers of kids being served in our campus restaurants, we want to be able to do that. We are also utilizing our outdoor dining spaces. So our students and our families will realize this year, students are probably going to have more spaces to kind of spread out and enjoy lunch with their friends. Some of our teachers are volunteering to give up their classroom spaces to accommodate some students, but we'll also have some schools who are utilizing their gym or their black box room or leadership hall or just other large courtyard spaces, again, to be able to spread kids out as best as possible so that we can socially distance and accommodate our serving needs.
Thank you. And Demetria, still on the topic of red apple dining, should families still fill out the free and reduced lunch application, even if they're doing at-home learning options, just in case they return back for face-to-face instruction later in the school year? I know that's a question, and I know those applications went out and went live on Monday, so folks can find those at the Red Apple Dining website, but is that something families should still do?
Yes, absolutely. You know, we do want our families to go ahead and complete those applications for meal benefits, and as Mr. Lawrence shared, those applications are live and are available from our SCPS website. What was also shared from Chad Wilski, the director of our Red Apple Dining, is that students who qualify for free and reduced lunch who are not attending face-to-face will be served through designated SCPS distribution sites. Those sites and times have not been made available, but that is going to be a great help to our families in need of food services for breakfast and lunch. And so I will encourage you, if you are in need, to please fill those applications out now so that your children will get the benefit of those meals that will be served.
Awesome, thank you. Now for a question that a lot of folks have been asking. It's on a lot of individuals' minds as they make their decisions, obviously before our Friday deadline at noon. This one's for Dr. Walsh. How will IEPs be handled in each of the middle school campuses?
Thank you very much. That question is coming to us quite frequently, and so I want to start out by saying, and I want to be perfectly clear, our students with disabilities are general education students first and foremost, afforded the same opportunities as their gen ed peers. So we treat our students like our other students and provide pathways for choice for parents. The IEP drives how we serve the student so they can access their curriculum. So for you to understand that, everything Demetria just shared and Sarah just shared applies to your child with an IEP or a 504. Many of the parents are saying, I want a meeting before making an instructional model decision. I want to be clear on that as well. You are the parent making your decision for your child and for your family. It's our job to work with you to see how we can support your child through that legal document, which is the IEP and the 504. Our teams are not back on contract as of yet, and you will be hearing from those team members as soon as they are. Also, a lot of the decisions haven't been made as far as classroom instruction because not all parents have made their decisions, and that deadline is Friday at noon. So with that being said, I just want to share a few things so that we can be understanding it all together. It's a student with an IEP or even a 504. Again, it's a legal document, and it is a continuum of service. So we start with the least restrictive environment for a student to the most restrictive or the most need. We look at that individual child and we say, is this the appropriate instructional model for that child, or how can they access that, and how can we provide it? So many of our parents are saying, is SCVS, Save My Seat, a good choice or a good option for my child? I would ask the question to you, how independent does your child navigate their academics right now? With support. So if they get support facilitation, they may receive related services such as speech and language, OT and PT, those kinds of things. That student may be a good candidate for SCVS, Save My Seat. A student that is in a direct instruction classroom for assistance with reading, mathematics, might need a little bit more scaffolding and direct instruction. It might be a hybrid that we're talking about, where some classes can be done through that model of Save My Seat, SCVS, and Seminole Connect, where their current teacher of record would be providing that direct instruction for the student. A student that is in self-contained classroom all day, we might have to take a look at Seminole Connect with a blend being appropriate for the student's IEP and their disability. So that blend could be that it is a modified version of Seminole Connect where we use somewhat of that distance learning pieces that we put in there. So with that being said, we will tailor-make some of the decisions based on individual children. So for me to make a blanket rule for all students with IEPs and 504s, it just can't happen because it takes a team to make those decisions. But we will work through that with you. With that being said, under the umbrella of IDEA includes students of gifted. And so those students that have gifted EPs, they will need to be followed as well. And you will have you'll have gifted endorsed teachers working with your child to provide those services as well.
Thank you, Dr. Walsh. This next question is also for you. Are all 4 options for students available for students with special needs?
Absolutely. They are afforded the same opportunities, a panoply of services and instructional models as all other students. But with the assurance, and this is part of the assurance of our reopening plan that we submitted to DOE, that we have to take into consideration our unique populations. And our students with disabilities are our unique population and fall under that umbrella. So it's going to be really a coordination, a dance, so to speak, with school personnel and the parents to decide and to determine how we serve the students. But our students are our priority, and we will make sure that we will try to meet their needs.
Thank you. And you kind of touched on it a little bit ago, but how exactly are we handling students with gifted services needs for all of the learning options available?
Very good. Well, again, we don't know how many students, we don't the numbers, and so basically this, and Sarah and I had a great conversation about how we provide services, and we talk a little bit about some of those things. And so with the idea in mind that the students, the parents making decisions, they don't want to send their student back to a brick and mortar, eventually the world will right itself again, and the kids will come back. And so we would like a seamless transition for those students from the home into the school. So that's why we talk about assigning those students to specific teachers at their zoned school. And so with that being said, it's the same thing for our students that are gifted and our students with IEPs. There'll be a person from that school that will help manage or supervise in making sure those EPs are followed and those IEPs. And I do want to mention, Mike, maybe to clarify and be very, very clear about related services. Anything on that IEP and in that 504 is federal contract. It's a contract that we are agreeing that these are things the student needs and these are things that the school district will provide. And so with that being said, related services will continue, even in a remote model. We'll have to be creative with some of those services, and they will not look like exactly as they were in a brick and mortar environment, but your student will receive those services, and we will monitor whether or not your student is progressing along the way. We have those assurances that we're to do for all students. That includes students with disabilities.
Thank you, Dr. Walsh. And next question is for Demetria. Are middle schools still having their normal Meet the Teacher events at the beginning of the school year, and how that might look this year?
Right, so each school, again, is planning their individual events. They will probably look different at every single campus. I know some of the principals are planning for that event to be hosted remotely, and others are planning for small groups. Again, that meets our guidelines followed by the CDC recommendations and Seminole County government. And so, again, this is really important that you pay attention to communications from your school principals and also engage in your school's social media and your school's website for those specific details.
Thank you. And Demetria, this question is also for you. What happens if a middle schooler student who is starting with Seminole Connect, Seminole County Virtual, or even the hybrid option, if they begin to struggle at the beginning of the school year or at any point throughout the school year, will there be any kind of support system in place to assist them?
Yeah, so we will continue our regular problem-solving process and MTSS for students in every who are being served in every model. And so I just want parents to be assured that if your kids are being struggled, that our teams will be looking at, where those gaps lie and where we can really dig in and help support our students. We also have a plan to continue tutorial services. They may look different. We may have some, like we did in the fourth quarter, that happens face-to-face, and some that will be offered remotely. And so we are prepared and planning for being able to support our students who are in need of additional support.
And Demetria, also, what will testing be like this school year for Seminole Connect, SCVS, et cetera, basically all our learning options?
So as of present day, all Florida K-12 assessments are still scheduled for the 2020-21 school year.
And I know this might be a little bit different for high school, but for those selecting the Seminole Connect or the Seminole County Virtual School options, and they have to do some of those assessments and tests, are those on campus only?
So for the Seminole Connect 9 weeks exam, yes, there is an expectation that those families come in to the brick and mortar facility to take those assessments. Our school teams will be able to work with families to schedule those times. There will be times that they could possibly come during the regular school day, but there are also times that they may be able to come on an early release Wednesday or after school, depending upon, again, available staff to facilitate those assessments. For SCVS, there is no 9-week requirement. They have their own assessments.
Thank you. And Demetria, will students be required to take the FSA?
As of present day, yes. All students will be required to take the Florida K-12 state assessments.
Thank you. Also, this next question is also for you, Demetria. If we choose Seminole Connect and choose to send them back to campus after the first 9 weeks, will they have the same teachers and schedule?
Yes, so that is what we are planning for. In the best ideal scenario, we're hoping to be able to create pure remote sections so that when our families make those decisions to come back, we're able to keep our students with those same teachers. But again, you know, all those things are driven by numbers. And there is a possibility that there may be some combined courses, and they will also be dependent upon class size because we are still under class size, you know, state regulation. And so in those cases where we may not be able to meet class size, there may be a change, but our plan is to keep our kids with the same teacher that they've been having through the remote model.
Thank you, Demetria. And obviously, we're having a state sales tax holiday coming up soon. A lot of people do their back-to-school shopping. Can you share with families, Demetria, how the school supply list this year will be shared and approximately when that'll occur?
Yes, and so again, a lot of those things are driven by our teachers, and they return back to contract on August 4th, and so I'm anticipating around that time. They're typically shared on our school websites and disseminated through our families through the school communication, usually the principal's letters or newsletters, but also definitely on their social media pages and their websites. And they're typically given by grade level and by content area. And so, again, please look forward during the early week of August, maybe that first week of August, when our teachers return to campus to, again, see those school supply lists. And again, they are specific by school. So again, please pay attention to communication from your school principals.
Thank you, Demetria. And this next question is for Stephanie Jackson. This is a question we're getting quite a bit. We know it's at the top of everyone's minds. What kind of cleaning protocols are going to be in place for our middle school campuses for those who are sending their students to face-to-face instruction in the fall?
Good morning. It's a great question, and we have an awesome custodial staff here that will be implementing additional times for cleaning throughout the school day, in addition to their evening cleanings that they will be using hospital-grade misters that we have acquired to be able to do a better disinfection of our high touch point areas and our highly trafficked areas to ensure that those places where you touch all the time, your desks, your light bulbs, your doorknobs, that all those areas are highly disinfected in the evening time prior to students coming back to school the next day.
Thank you. Another big question, Stephanie, this is for you, that we see over and over again in our emails, on our Facebook posts, just pretty much everywhere, and it's very important to families who are considering sending their kids back to face-to-face instruction, is how will a school handle a student or staff person that tests positive for COVID-19? Will families be notified, and who will handle that?
Right, great question again. So Seminole County Public Schools and the Department of Health Seminole has a great working relationship, and a part of our normal procedures are that we report communicable diseases to the Department of Health. So if a student or parent or a staff member informs us that they are positive for coronavirus or COVID-19, we will complete an illness report log That log will have multiple questions to help with the investigation of that specific situation. That will be shared with the Department of Health, and that will start the investigation so that they can then use that information to to do contact tracing to ensure that students or staff who have been around, excuse me, who have been around others who tested positive can also then be informed by the Department of Health of their need for isolation. So if someone tests positive, they need to be at home for 10 days from the date that they tested positive, or until, in addition to, I should say, no fever. They should also have their symptoms be improved, and again, the 10 days. If someone has symptoms of coronavirus, they have not tested positive, but they're showing symptoms, not everyone needs to go to the doctor or will go to the doctor. So if someone does not go to the doctor, but they are showing symptoms of coronavirus, then those persons need to be out for 14 days from the date that they're showing symptoms.
Thank you, Stephanie. And Demetria, to piggyback on that a little bit, because this is a question we also have been seeing, if for some reason a student has to self-isolate, maybe they were in contact with someone in their class, they have to self-isolate for the 10 days or more, how are we treating that in terms of their schoolwork? Obviously, my understanding is that they would be given their coursework to do from home like they normally would do, no different than if it was a normal school year and a kid had the flu or they were out sick for an extended period of time. Teachers will send them their assignments and they can do those at home and turn them in at their own pace. They do not have to switch to Seminole Connect, correct?
No, they would not have to change platforms. In that case, we are planning for our teachers to be able to, again, as they would when students miss multiple days of school for any other sickness, that, again, we're working with families to provide instruction and provide assignments, and working with the families to, again, maybe collect them remotely, but again, families do not have to do an overhaul of their model choice in that case, and we would do our best to be able to serve our students while they are isolated.
Thank you. And Demetria, this next question is for you as well. How will middle schools reduce the flow of traffic or large groups in common areas such as hallways?
This has been an ongoing discussion with the middle school principals. We have a lot of challenges because our campuses, again, are so unique, but they are working with their teams to identify how we can spread out the kids. We've been really thinking about arrival, dismissal, and transitions. Those have been conversations that we've been having ongoing for the past several months. And each campus is unique, and so their teams are working to devise those plans. They will be communicating those to families, because I know some campuses who are able to do so are trying to make one direction hallways. We have some campuses that will work beautifully. I know Jackson Heights is one of those campuses who are considering. I literally walked the campus of Rock Lake last week with Mr. Dunlop, and that is some considerations that they're having. But we have some campuses that are mazes. I think about South Seminole Academy. That is a campus of mazes, and one-directional hallways may not work, but that principal and her team are working to figure out other ways specific to that campus to, again, reduce hallway traffic and have kids spread out as best as possible through those transitions. So, again, your teams are working on, again, customized plans for their campuses that's going to work with the facility setup that they have to best serve your children.
Thank you, Demetria. And the next question is also for you. Are some middle schools still offering their K-Zone program, which is our extended day program for middle school students?
Yes, so middle schools will continue offering Kids Zone. Those applications are actually available now, and so please go to the SCPS website. If you are interested in your child participating in the middle school Kids Zone program, I would like to also share that enrollment has been limited at each site based on CDC guidelines and space availability. And so if you want to secure a seat for your child, I would register today for the Kids Zone program at your child's school.
And Demetria, that concludes the questions that we received in advance. We're going to open it up to some of the questions while time permits that are in the Facebook post that folks have asked. We do want to reiterate to everyone viewing that if you may have come in late and you may have missed some of the answers to some of the questions you might have, This Facebook session will stay on our Facebook page upon conclusion. It'll also be on our YouTube page, archived, so it'll always be there for you to rewatch at your own pace. And we'll also send this out to all our middle school families at the conclusion of today's session. So if you need to go back and look at anything, and if you missed a question and a response, you can do so. We also have an FAQ, as Demetria stated at the beginning of this session, on our website, right in the first position of our photo slider at the top of the page. All things reopening plans and student learning options are all on one page, and there's a great FAQ sheet on there for those of you that haven't received that or haven't been able to go through that just yet to answer additional questions. This next question, Demetria, is regarding some rumors out there, or just a lot of talk out there from other districts as well. Do parents need to sign a COVID waiver if they send them back to school face-to-face?
No. Parents are not being asked to sign a waiver to send their children back to face-to-face instruction.
Thank you. Also, Demetria, this is another question we get a lot, particularly for middle school and high schools. Are all our middle schools switching to a block schedule? Can you kind of talk us through that?
Yeah, so last year, I would say probably about half of the middle school campuses operated on a 4-day block and 1-day straight 7, and the other 6 had modified blocks where kids were going to straight 7 for 3 days a week and had odd and even blocks 2 days a week. And so this year, we agreed as a team for consistency with our parents and also to minimize transition that we will all go to a 4-day block and 1 day of straight 7. So 2 days a week, our students will be participating in 1, 3, 5, and 7 classes, so that's an odd block. And on 2 days a week, they will engage in even block classes. And then 1 day a week, and that may vary by campus, students will be engaged in the straight 7. And so again, all 12 middle school campuses will have 4 days of block and 1 day of a straight 7 period. Those schools are refining their schedules. I know some of them are still tweaking lunch schedules, and so those bell schedules should be live or will be coming live within the next week for our families to review. I've actually had a couple of parents email me, and I've been sending them to them because they're trying to coordinate their childs for the ones who are picking hybrid, trying to coordinate between their multiple age students. And so parents, if you have kids at different levels, elementary, middle, high, and you're trying to look at how can I make all of this work for my family if I'm choosing a hybrid, I will encourage you to look at all of your kids' bell schedules and kind of seeing how it can work to help you with your commute to and from, for some of you all, 3 campuses. And again, your schools will be working with you, again, because we really want to accommodate our families and help make this time seamless as possible for you all as we're all going through this crazy time right now. So again, please communicate with your school teams because we really do want to help, again, make this work for you and your family.
Thank you. The next question will be for Stephanie. Can you kind of clarify how will a student be cleared to return? I know that'll be through health professions and health professionals and the health department, but can you walk a family through what that process will look like in order for a student to return to face-to-face? What are those requirements?
All right. So if someone comes with a positive test result, then that doctor should also indicate on there when they can return to work or school. So that would be an easy one. The more difficult situation is when someone who is symptomatic, symptoms of COVID-19, and we then exclude them from school for the 10 days that they need to be out with those symptoms. When it's time for them to return to school, they don't necessarily need to have a doctor's note. They just need to make sure that it has been at least 10 days, that the symptoms are improving, and that they have gone for 3 days without having a fever, without fever-reducing medication. That's very important. So all of those criteria need to be met in order for a student or staff member to return back to campus.
Thank you. And I want the viewing audience to know that for students that forget their face mask at school or maybe lose theirs, we will have disposable face masks at all our campuses, as well as hand sanitizer. The district also ordered 25,000 dust shields, which we'll use in areas of need. And we know that there's several folks out there in the community that are working to donate face shields as well as desk shields as well, and we appreciate that work that they're doing. And so we'll use those wherever we can in areas of need to help with the social distancing and making sure we have a secure campus. Go ahead, Stephanie.
And I want to clarify, I misspoke something earlier when I stated that if someone is symptomatic, they're out for 14 days. The date that they test positive, and if they are symptomatic, they're out for those 10 days. It's if someone is in close contact with a person who has tested positive that they need to be out for 14 days. And I apologize for not making that clear the first time.
Oh, thank you very much, Stephanie. Next question is also for you. Can you clarify for families who are sending their students back for face-to-face instruction, are staff required to wear face masks?
Yes, students and staff will be required to wear face masks on campuses and in other work sites for SCPS.
And even though we're not taking temperature checks, daily for every student, because we have thousands and thousands of students at high schools, middle schools, and even some of our elementary schools, can you share what families should be encouraged to do in terms of checking temperatures, checking for signs of illness, and if so, keeping their kids at home?
Yes, I beg of you, please, parents, keep your students home if they are sick. The same with staff members. Everyone wants to, show up to work so that they can help their coworkers. But when you are sick, right now at this time, it is in everyone's best interest if you do stay at home or keep your child at home when they are showing signs and symptoms of illness. Even if you're not sure if it's coronavirus, if maybe they have just maybe a fever but no other symptoms, you need to keep that child at home. If you're giving them fever-reducing medications, then that's not the time when the clock starts for you to start counting down as to when they can return to school. If you're still not able to figure out what's going on with that student, then yes, please seek medical attention. It is important for your medical professionals to help you determine what the problem is. If a doctor's note states that this person does not have coronavirus and maybe they just had an ear infection and they can return to school, then that is acceptable for a student or staff member to return to school. But we just want to be on the safe side. If you are not seeking medical attention, then you will be excluded for the maximum amount of time so that we're not then posing that possibility of contaminating others or infecting others on school campuses.
Thank you, Stephanie. Demetria, this next question is for you. How do teachers who are teaching through the Seminole Connect model, how is that going to be done? Is that going to be done through a webcam, or are they sharing videos? Again, obviously some folks are accustomed to what we did on a turn of a dime at the end of last school year, where it was completely different. It was a combination of maybe some Zoom type meetings, WebEx meetings at different times. It was emails back and forth, assignments that didn't have to be done until the end of the week. Can you kind of explain and clarify how a teacher doing Seminole Connect will be working with the students at home?
And again, we have asked our middle schools as best as possible to schedule for pure remote sections. And I think that is going to help teachers best be able to serve our students who are working at home in the Seminole Connect model, because it won't necessarily require webcam. As long as the students and the teachers have web-enabled devices, laptops, Chromebooks, they would be able to facilitate instruction. Where it gets a little bit more complicated is if we are having co-scheduled Seminole Connect classes where you have kids who are participating remotely and students who are participating face-to-face. And again, we are working with our informational services department to exhaust all models because it may require a webcam, it may not. And so we are meeting with Dr. Harper literally next Monday to talk about other options for teachers in that model to where we can best serve students who may be participating in that co-scheduled that session, because that is where it gets a little bit more complicated, and we'll probably have a more intricate setup so that we can, again, capture the kids who are participating remotely and the students who are face-to-face, because our first priority is to make sure that all students' instructional needs are being met, and we do not want any kids getting missed in any of these models. And so we are, again, exploring every possible option to make sure that the learning environment, regardless if it's face-to-face or if it's happening at your home, that we are able to best serve our kids.
Thank you. Next question for Stephanie. You kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but in terms of the cleaning protocols that will be happening on campuses for families who are returning their students back in the fall. Are those desks and classrooms going to be cleaned daily by the maintenance staff and the facility staff at each of those campuses and custodians? How does that actually work? And are they going to also be doing misting as well?
So during the day, we're implementing one additional time for the custodial staff to clean the classrooms. We are also in our training and presentations that we'll be giving to the entire staff, asking them to also clean behind themselves. So as I make something dirty, I will clean it up. My custodial staff will come in and they will do disinfection. So there's a little bit difference in that. You know, we want to make sure that we're wiping down our areas. If you notice that a student is something is visually dirtied by a student, or they're coughing or they're sneezing in the classroom, then we have asked those teachers to be able to wipe down behind those students after they're doing that. So if a student is exhibiting those symptoms, wipe down, send them to the clinic. We're asking parents to come and pick up their students immediately after we call them, so that we're not then posing risk for that student to infect others.
Perfect, thank you. And this next question is also for you. Can you clarify for families at home if, you know, the difference between if a child is knowingly to have asthma or allergies, and they're just having a flare-up in terms of sending them or not sending them. If someone just has allergies and the family knows that that's what it is, walk them through that process. Do they need to self-quarantine for 14 days or 10 days? What does that process look like?
So we have nurses that work with each school, and they know the students. If a parent has shared information with us, they know the students who already have a medical condition. So that helps us and the clinic staff to be able to determine what students already have asthma or allergies or whatever health condition that may present with symptoms that are similar to COVID-19. So we will have guidelines or charts that help the clinic staff as they are going through each student. Okay, this symptom could be this. But they will also have direct connection to their school nurse so that they can help them through that process as well. If a student has a previous medical condition, it will be a different story for them versus for a student who does not have any prior medical condition.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And with that, we're running out of time, so we're going to wrap up today's session. But I kind of want to do a little bit of housekeeping. First, want to thank our illustrious panel today for your time and your expertise in sharing this information with our families. But also want to share with everyone that, again, if you happen to jump on late or you missed one of the questions or the responses to those questions, we will be blasting that out to all our middle school families this afternoon. We'll also have it archived in Facebook, so you can rewatch at your own leisure, and also on our YouTube channel, so you can watch that at any time. And if you miss something, hopefully you can catch the answer to your question. Again, remember, the FAQ is also on our website, www.seps.us. This afternoon, if you have a high school student, our Facebook Live session for high school will begin at 1 p.m. today. Similar format, we'll have some high school principals participating as well. So we encourage you to view that if you have some high school questions. In addition, tomorrow, as Demetria mentioned at the beginning, at 10 a.m., we'll be doing a Spanish-speaking Spanish-only Facebook Live session for our Spanish-speaking families to address those, and that will totally be in Spanish to address any of those questions and needs that they have as well. So we want to try to accommodate as many folks as possible, try to answer as many questions as we can in this very short time frame. We thank all our families for being patient with us and understanding. We know these are very, very difficult decisions. We know there's a lot on your mind. We're there with you, and we're going to be as flexible and adaptable as possible to get through this together. And we appreciate everybody's time and understanding through this process. So again, we'll address some of these questions that were in the Facebook Live post. Again, we addressed the most common questions that we were emailed and kind of grouped those together due to the allotment of time. But we will go back and try to address or answer and respond to some of the other questions that maybe we didn't hit on later this evening and through tomorrow. So just please be patient, bear with us. We know that we're getting lots and lots of questions. We know our reopening email has thousands and thousands of emails in that inbox too that we're responding to. So we understand that your question will be answered, and we're all working very hard to get you those answers that you need. obviously prior to Friday's July 24th at noon deadline. So we want to make sure, don't wait till the last minute. We don't want to, have computers crashing and you not being able to get your selection. So please do as best as possible, make your selection prior to noon on July 24th. And again, as Demetria said, where practical and where space that we have available, if you happen to forget or miss that, we are going to try to accommodate all our families as best as possible. But again, we're playing a numbers game in terms of teachers of who can support what model, and we need to know those numbers to do all that scheduling and all the things that the district needs to do in a short window of time to get everybody ready for the start of the school year, which again, we've moved back to August 17th. So with that, we conclude today's session, and I thank everyone for watching. Thank you, and have a great day.